Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values podcast. This is going to be part 2 of my conversation with Alex Castañeda. In this episode, we talk about his favourite materials to use, his certain approaches and tips and tricks for certain things, his background and his influences with other artists, and lots of other things. He's a fantastic guest. If you haven't seen part 1, then I will leave a link here. But without further ado, this is my conversation with Alex Castañeda. Okay. Is it mainly, because I've seen that you use oil, I've seen you use Copic markers, I've seen you use pencil, I've seen you use digital. Is it all medium, or is it like, do you use, watercolor, do you use acrylic, do you use gouache? Is it everything, or do you have preferred media that you will go to?
I actually with Copic markers, I always wanted, like, back in Peru when I was a student, I couldn't afford those because those were prohibitively expensive back in Peru.
Yeah.
Maybe they cost like 3 times what you would buy them in, the US or anywhere else. So I always like I'm a big and this is something we could talk maybe. I'm a art forums back in the day. People might not remember those, but there were art forums out there that really shaped who I am. And I remember seeing people doing beautiful Copic marker work that mimics watercolors.
Mm,
So I remember seeing those works, and I'm like, wow, it looks like watercolors, but it's markers.
yeah.
Um, so I always wanted to try that and use the markers as a watercolor, and I think I was able to manage something that's close to it.
Mm,
And so I invested a long portion of my years as a student to learn to do that. Um, so yeah, Copics, just like watercolors, are a transparent medium, and it's you go from light to dark, and oils is the opposite because it's an opaque medium. You
mm,
go from dark to light. Um, So yeah, I dedicate myself to a few things, a few mediums like oils, uh, watercolors, and I mentioned I work for a video game company, and so my job there was to be a colorist for all the assets and all the backgrounds. So everything they like, parallax uh, effect is when the mountains move and you see the little layers like a mountain and a building here.
mm,
But I needed to color all of those things. So actually, the way I do my stickers, it's very close to the way I used to work at the video games coloring those assets. And I learned a lot actually working at that company. And so I always switch between digital and traditional. I think, if I'm working for a big period of time in a digital project, I am like, I'm done. I wanna get dirty,
yeah.
I wanna do the oils, I wanna do the markers. And vice versa, if I'm doing like a lot of oils and I wanna go back to digital because it's just like they have their own thing.
Yeah.
Uh, for the when I was part of that transition when digital came up, and I thought I needed to mimic traditional with
Mm,
digital, but I realized it doesn't have to be that way. Digital has its own thing, and it
mm.
should be its own thing. You know what I mean? And when I came down to that conclusion, it just felt better, and I just was able to just do better work because I'm not trying to mimic it anymore. It's just like its own thing.
Mm. So are you currently not working for anyone? Are you currently freelance and taking on commissions as an independent artist?
Yeah. most of my work is freelance. Like I mentioned, I do being part of this business is like you need to have products for every kind of customer. There's customers that will only buy a sticker, or they want a print,
Mm,
or they will only spend a certain amount of money. And there's the big fish. There's those clients that will buy an original painting that I don't sell paintings every day. That would be nice, but um I do all of those. I do the teaching, I do the figure drawing events. There's just so much you can do, and I try to help my friends that want to do this. So I tell them, you just got to keep doing it. You gotta, because again, they will tell you how hard it is to be an artist. They love doing that, but everything's hard. Working at McDonald's is hard. Being a lawyer is hard. They'll just choose your heart. Might as well be the heart you chose.
yeah, that's lovely. Well, if I can quote you actually, because I do have something which I wanted to ask you about, and it was a lovely quote. It reminds me of um, someone who taught me a lot about painting and how she saw the world. And you've put, maybe to be a good painter is ultimately to love life, to be awed at the simplest of things, and to maintain a childlike heart. Is that something which you kind of each day kind of reinforced in your practice and in your ideology or your
Oh
work?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think thanks for quoting that by the way. Whenever I wrote things like that, I'm like, I wonder who's reading these. um yeah, no, very true. Honestly, it is that like if you know, I say I want to help the younger me, the
Mm,
younger version of me that needed help. Because when I grew up as an artist, I didn't have any artists in my family or friends uh, to guide me. Oh wow, your color is so great, your drawing is so great. You must be naturally gifted. Is that thing? But I'm like, no, it was really hard. It's just the only gift I think you're giving is the desire to create. I think
mm,
that's the only thing that I would say makes you different from the rest. Yeah, I think love is everything. You know what I mean? I think painting is an art of love. And I don't know if you read some of my posts.
mm,
So I had many students before. I have hundreds of students, but I think I had only two students that stuck with me for years and years and years,
mm,
and they got so good. They found partners. They got married via art.
mm.
Number one student, he painted this portrait of this girl he liked, and marriage. Second student fell in love with one of my models. They married, and I'm like maybe I should market my classes that find the love of your life classes. Just yeah, it's related. You don't see it, but it is love. Basically that's what it is.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's very nice. Well, I was going to ask as well, because we talked earlier, kind of jumping back and forth a little bit, but um, because we spoke a little bit about color and your use of color,
Mhm.
um, unless I'm wrong, I always assume to render something tonally correct leaves you free to play with color as soon as you understand tone. Is that kind of a principle which you agree with? Is that kind of an approach that you understand to be true?
Yeah, I always tell my students that value is 80% of a painting, and I would say that color is actually just 20% of the painting. Uh, yeah, I think you are into something there.
Excellent.
So yeah, and actually, let's go deeper into that. If you take a black and white picture of a very colorful painting or a scene, you will realize that there's not there's not much contrast.
Mm,
Color is found in the medium tones more than the contrasty parts. So everything's very muddy. Everything's very close together when it comes to color.
yeah. I'm always fascinated by the understanding of tone. I mean, this podcast is called Good Values for the double meaning of good tonal values for
Uh,
painting and rendering, and also having good values as a person being a good person in the world. And I always found it interesting with how the lightest dark will be darker than the darkest light on a portrait
Portrait.
of, that kind of
You know,
balance that you understand.
yes, and
Mm,
like let's go. It takes us back to life. That's when I teach people about painting. I'm like, hold on, I'm not teaching painting. I'm teaching them life. It's like you don't have a positive side if you don't have a negative side. It's all related. It's
mhm.
it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well,
Mm,
it's nice to reinforce good values as a person, I think, as well, because there's so much conflicting political ideologies clashing currently that it's nice to try and find a more peaceful diplomatic way through without betraying your own morals and values and ethics, really. And I think there's always going to be a right way of navigating difficult situations, and art can be a really nice way of bridging that gap. I found it can bring people together.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I always said to people that when I was young and I had a skateboard in my hand, doors would close because people found the skateboard threatening. Whereas when I have a sketchbook in my hand, doors open because people love seeing the artwork and sharing things like that. Have you had any experiences where you've been out in the wild drawing or painting and you've been given opportunities that may not have been available where you're not seen as an artist?
Um, well, I do have a little story. When I was going to the zoo and draw with some friends, I was just drawing monkeys at the zoo,
Mm.
and all these kids come, and the kids put their head on my paper, and I'm like, "Excuse me, kid," that, and they tell their parents like, "Dad, look, an artist," and the monkey's right there. I'm like, "The monkey's right there, kid. Like, I'm not the monkey." So I think it's lovely, like
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like we need to be children, you have to have the childlike heart. That's what I meant in that quote.
yeah,
Um, and art is part of that. It's like creation, you know what I mean? So it
mm,
brings people together.
yeah,
Creation is the opposite of war, and I think that's why it works.
yeah. So when it comes to other people's art and you're in a gallery or an exhibition of some kind, what is it that you value about art itself when it comes to the kind of just general, you know, um, kind of discipline of art making?
Um, just like I mentioned before, just like talking about the sensitivity of a woman, I think it's emotions. I I'm a very emotional person, and when I see that on somebody else's work, it's very touching. Let me give you example. For example, right here we have the Getty Museum over in LA,
Mm,
and I went there, and I just spent maybe like a whole hour looking at Rembrandt's paintings. And I'm just fascinated. I'm like, I could understand what he was feeling in that moment. It's like, I don't know, it's something so beautiful. It's like a language only you can understand. And that's part of, again, everything's tied together here. It's part of teaching people too. You don't teach and you force something to a student. A great teacher does this. A great teacher is like, look at this, look what I'm doing, look how much I enjoy this, come and enjoy it with me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's what a great teacher does,
yeah,
and it
absolutely.
should be like that.
Yeah. Well, I can see a lovely collection of statues and things on your, or kind of models and things on your top there on your shelves. Is that Do you engage in any kind of sculpture at all yourself, or is this a collection of other artists?
No, I actually never tried sculpture.
Right, right.
Actually, it's funny because this is tied again to John Mahoney. I have a lot of John Mahoney's statues in there, and
Excellent.
my friend Xi, and actually, you should check her work out. It's She works with the female form as well.
Mm,
She's from Mexico, uh, and every time I I show their work, on my social media, they think it's mine because we have the same language as far as like the female form goes.
Yeah.
Uh, and John has some very interesting. Maybe I can try showing you something here. Well, if it doesn't fall. For example, this is hopefully this is not like a YouTube thing, infringement thing. But this is a statue by John Mahoney,
That's
and I
excellent.
oil painted this.
Oh
I gave
wow.
it flesh. I gave it flesh tones,
Yeah,
and it was just a beautiful collaboration. You know,
absolutely. So how did it
um,
arrive to you? What color was it when you had it?
it was just white.
Which is white. Oh,
It
fantastic.
was just white. I have some videos here on my Instagram, so maybe you can have that with a better lighting. But yeah, it's like it's people I admire, and there's a lot of Ashley Wood figures there too, which is Ashley Wood is another artist I admire a lot.
Mm,
And you know what? I'm gonna say this: I was never a big Egon Schiele fan, but it turns out that all the artists I admire Egon Schiele, and because of that, even John Mahoney too,
yeah,
and that made me see him with different eyes, and now I'm an Egon Schiele fan.
excellent. Yeah, I do love Sheila. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fantastic.
Now, yeah, like for me, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I was speaking to an artist yesterday, a friend of mine who was been interviewed, and she'd said how Gustav Klimt is known for the embrace and his gold leaf work. But if you look at his landscape painting, he has a whole body of work that people aren't familiar with. And I wonder
Mm.
as well, are there any kind of practices that you do where people are less familiar of, or is there, any kind of misconceptions you think people might have about either you or your work, or are you an open book? Is there anything where you think people don't actually know that I do this? This is a practice which I do and I don't publicize it enough. Is there that side of you?
Oh, other things I do?
Hmm.
I'm just a gamer.
You're a big
Other than
gamer.
that, I play Street Fighter a lot, and maybe it's too far, but I'll give you some images. These frames that you see here,
Yeah.
they're drawings by Daigo Keno, the Japanese illustrator I was talking about earlier.
Mm,
And when I was a kid, what was fascinating to me about those video games was the art. The art was so good, and that was what kept me drawing. Like
mm.
being able to draw with him on a zoom figure drawing is just something that blows my mind. The internet nowadays is such a powerful tool where you have no idea. Back then, that would only be a dream.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I play Street Fighter. Like I only know how to draw, play Street Fighter, and on my free time, I also just play the piano here and there. But
Oh,
it's
that's nice to
basically
know.
all I do.
Are you good at the piano, or is it something you're learning?
I just play by ear. It's just like
Nice.
when I was a kid, I had a lot of free time, so all I did was just draw in my room and mess with the piano. Again, video game music too, which video games have. If you go to Caffeine Heroes, you'll see there's a very heavy video game influence to the whole thing. You actually will see there's a pixel version of me doing the figure drawing. It's very cool because I hired my folks from back in that when I was working at that company.
Mm,
Great talent, by the way, great talent, and I just want to share that with the world.
absolutely. Well, yeah, I'd love to show as many. Well, we'll put as many links as possible in the description. I'd love to show as much visual inserts as possible for everything that we're discussing. I suppose I'd like to ask the big questions that I usually ask every guest. It's something which
Hmm.
I used to get asked every day by my art mentor, and it meant a lot to me in my kind of growth and understanding in what it is to be an artist. And one is the double barrel question, which is what do you like and what don't you like about your own artwork?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, I don't know. We are our own worst critics. When I see my work, I see all the flaws, all the things I can do better.
Mm,
I'm like, wow, maybe I should make that hand better, make that feet better. Uh, and I always never liked it. Like I would like it, and then I would hate it. That's usually how it goes with us with artists.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. The thing I like about my art is that gets me closer with people. Like I like that my art could be a started a conversation started, and
Mm.
meet so many great people through art. Like for example, yesterday I told you I was talking with this old 76-year-old artist, and I was like, "Wow, we're the same person." Like it was like he's like an older me.
Yeah.
I always try to help my younger me, but there's older me's that I find, and I'm like, "Wow, that's fascinating. Cheers, mate."
Yeah. Excellent. You're like, wait a minute, I'm a younger you. Help me. I'm trying to help the younger
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
There's lots of
exactly. But there's
wisdom.
older yous too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also as an artist and someone who retains observations on your, in your daily life and will be in awe of the simplest things, as you said, what is the most beautiful thing you've seen today?
Uh, oh, just in general of things.
Yeah, today, what would you say is something that you've retained as one of the most beautiful things that you've seen today?
Wow. Everything's beautiful to me, honestly.
I know that feeling.
Um, People helping people, that's the most beautiful thing I can see,
Yeah,
in a broken world. I choose to love, Uh,
yeah, that's it.
that's what I always do. I choose to help and I choose to love because I am here, but I've been helped by many people in order to be here.
Mm,
So I always try to pay it forward. I think human kindness is the most beautiful thing I can see.
yeah, that's excellent. That's a lovely answer. Is there anything that you've got coming up, any kind of big events or anything that you'd like to discuss as far as something that you've got happening this year that you're excited about?
Uh, well, we have the Zoom figure drones for now. I would like everybody to go check Caffeine Heroes on the Instagram. Uh,
Mm.
we have the entire globe now, so the more the merrier. And yeah, I would like to have an art show too. But you know what? Every time I try to gather works for artwork, I keep selling them. It's a good thing and a bad thing.
It's a good
But
problem.
yeah, I mean, I like paying my bills. That's great. So, but I'd like to have a show eventually. I had group shows in LA. Like I have a lot of group shows here and there.
Yeah.
But one of my goals is to have a solo show at some point.
Mm.
So yeah, that's in the works for sure.
Excellent. That would be exciting. Well, let me know if that comes about so that I can promote it along with you. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
is there any social media that you'd like to send the audience to? Is anything that you'd like people to check out aside from Caffeine Heroes? You have your Instagram. Do you have any other social media accounts you'd like people to check out and support?
It's basically that. And you know what? I've left YouTube for on a hiatus for the longest time, but seeing your work here honestly has inspired me to keep going because
Mm.
I did the work for ArtStation.com, teaching classes. So
Mm.
it's also video. So I think I'd like to, resume on this journey and do a little more YouTube. And this is
Excellent.
this is a great for me. This is a great motivation for me to go back to it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, as I said to you earlier, off camera, off the recording, I'd love to have you on again. So I hope that you'll be a guest again. And if I
Thanks,
can
man.
collaborate with you in any way, I'd love to because I think you're a fantastic artist and a really nice person. That'd be great.
Thank you, man.
Excellent.
Likewise.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest.
All right. Thanks, my man. I
Been great
appreciate it.
talking to
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the episode done. Now, he was a fantastic guest. I loved talking to him. He was such a nice person to discuss and explore different ideas about artwork with, so much so that I had him on again with another fantastic artist, Alberto Ruiz, whose book I bought recently. Might be just off camera there. Let's see if I can. There. Line and Mass. Fantastic art book about figure drawing or life drawing. And I talked to them both about, well, different aspects of art making. So that is going to be posted as well soon. So if you like this episode, then stay tuned for that one. Subscribe to the channel if you can, that way you know when new episodes are being uploaded. And this is a new format that I'm discussing where I have two artists at once. So I do have Alex and Alberto on, as this new format where I discuss art with two artists who either know each other or have something in common regarding their art making. Support Alex on his social media. I've left links in the description below. He really deserves it. He's a fantastic artist and just a lovely person. So go and support him and his work using the links in the description. I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next episode.